Hello, I'm here at iTech with one of the Talent Innovation Award winners. Why don't you start off by introducing yourself and your company?
Sure. My name is Daniel Victorino. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Galaxies. We are a Martech company that develop technology called Syntech Personas. They use to predict consumer behavior with high accuracy. Basically, we use real consumer data to generate AI model, custom-built models, and we serve them on our platform for customers. And it's currently used to test like marketing campaign, digital buying journeys, and we had some traction with Chinese companies in Brazil, but also looking forward to expanding outside of our country. And we just found the competition, we participated, and thankfully we won. So that's it. That's how we got here.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And my follow-up question to that is, clearly this is a very niche space. What were you doing before you came in to this idea?
Well, I worked in finance and consulting for most of my career. And the previous job that I had before Galaxies was a CMO at a money transfer company in London. And a lot of the pains that we basically were trying to solve, I felt myself. But I think I worked with data for most of my career. And like gradually, I just had this idea that we could use technology to solve a little bit better the pain of talking to your consumers in a more scalable way. And then just before ChatGPT with the wave of AI 2021, we started to experience with that. My OpenAI account is from 2021. And when we started Galaxies, we had a different angle as a company. So we tested a few theses. And on the end of 2023, we just got around what we're doing now and we pivoted the company. So 2024, 2025, we matured around the thesis and starting to have some commercial success, specifically end of 2024, but most of 2025. So it's almost 4 years a company, but like 2 years around our journey with this product. And we've been growing like steadily like now for this time.
That's amazing. And part of your growth journey is expanding into China.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit more about why China? What brought you here?
Of course. I think there are several reasons, right? For example, the first one, I think there's this talent now, very, very nascent and very strong in AI. I think, of course, one of the leading countries, like 60% of all AI patents ever registered in China. And also now we are thinking about a consumer market that is also huge because we sell to B2B companies, but to companies that do consumer market in scale. And of course, China is super interesting, but we had some interest from Chinese companies in Brazil also like pointed us in this direction, but also some Southeast Asian companies from other countries. So we were thinking about where should we have a base, where should be the perfect place basically to set up company, maybe find talent and also from there expand to other places. And China just increasingly became the better option and solution for us. And I think also now we have also a high interest of Chinese companies in setting up Latam, specifically in Brazil. So we have several major companies that landed in the last, 10 to 5 years there as well. This also kind of created for us this window of opportunity because our product helped them basically to localize their solutions and to sell better and basically to build more effective campaigns in communications. So I think it's just the perfect set of conditions that made us choose to come and expand here in China.
What do you think are opportunities that other founders should be keeping an eye on that might be beneficial to their businesses as well?
I think talent is one of the top ones, but also this entrepreneurship community. So a lot of events like this one and grants and opportunities to network. And I think a lot of companies here as well are very open to trying out startups or different solutions because this is a culture as well. Not every country you will find more established and big companies that are willing to test out new solutions, but also depending on your industry, right? For example, for us in AI or a lot of technology industries, I think it's very good for several different reasons. But I think this is a decision you have to make, right? Where and when to expand, because it always could be too early or too late. And so this is something you have to balance out. And also depends a little bit of your company. For example, if you have maybe hardware or physical operations, it's much harder to plan for an expansion because you have CapEx, you have to invest. In our case, as we are more software based, it's easier for us to test and to make this decision. So I think everything goes within this bigger equation for you to make a decision. But for us, it was a little bit around this kind of criteria.
Right. And can you talk a little bit more about how you actually started to enter into the Chinese market?
Yeah.
And something happens. So why don't you talk us a little bit more through that process?
When we applied for the iTech competition, then we got through phase 1. So phase 2 was actually in person. So we needed to come. And then we were within the Founders Lab program that they both help you to come for iTech, but also they will help you with an agenda here to meet potential customers and other innovations ecosystems, right? So we spent a week here and it was very, very eye-opening. I'd never been to China previously. So I think it helped us to create more conviction. And already what motivated us a lot was like there was interest in the solution, right? People will say like, I would pay for this. This is actually good, solves our problems. So I think this was very big for us. And after the second step, we learned that we were like approved for the last one. That was online.
Oh, that's super interesting. So you've come to China now, you've been operating here for a little bit. What's the biggest misconception that you think people have of China?
Wow, that's a great question. But I think it depends on where you live in the world. I think there's a lot of misconceptions, especially in the media and the press. But I think, thankfully, like in Brazil, we have been exposed a lot of Chinese technology and products for, I mentioned, like 10 to 5 years. So I think slowly started to build a different perception within the country. And I think a lot of people just consider China in terms of a big manufacturer marketing and of course a big market, but they kind of don't know in terms of advancements of technology, innovation, talent, as I mentioned. But I think also it's very different. So I think if you want to actually commit and try to land here and do business, you need to come. I think the physical element is so important. I think this is very similar to we have in Brazil, a lot of like shaking hands, looking in your eyes, like sharing a meal. And I think this is also a misconception that you can just like maybe put your product here or just email some people and we do business. You need to come, you need to understand. And I think that's basically it in my opinion, but so basically understanding where to come and when to come, but the misconception will be around what to expect and how to do business in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. That's really great advice. And that's something that I've heard already. A few other people share as well, where you really have to be here. So now let's pivot a little bit away from talking about China and more so on your journey as a founder and what you think other people should be aware of. What do you think are some mistakes that founders make? And what do you think they can do to avoid those mistakes?
I mean, mistakes are a part of the journey, I would say as well. Like you have to be comfortable being wrong. I think this is one of the best advices I can give, right? Because I think being an entrepreneur is about like inherently you have to test a lot of things until you find either, for example, your product, your PMF, but also just doesn't matter the experience you have in your life. For example, I work with finance, with data. I have people responding to me, but I didn't ever do HR or accounting or legal. So you're put in these situations that you just need to test things out and learn. This, I think, is the first advice that I can give. The second one as well is that you're very eager to think that you already found your product. From a lot of other founders that I speak with, one of the most common mistakes is spending a lot in marketing before you actually have your products, trying to scale, like hiring people before you actually are making more consistent revenue is also another mistake. In general, I would say that those are some of the more tried and true ones. But the third one would be people. The big challenge around like starting a company is that usually you won't have a lot of money, even depending if you raise or don't raise, but it's not enough. You have to find good people and convince them to join a crazy dream without having a lot of money. In the beginning, because of that, I wasn't very thorough with some of the hires we had. So we had a lot of short-term hires. And with time, I think I learned much more that like you have the hard skills, but also like the cultural aspect or like the soft skills are so important. And for example, if you have like 9 A+ people and you have like 1 B less people or C people, everyone is gonna be like lowered, right? So like I think the talent density and having like fewer but very, very good people and being very like selective about who you bring in would be like one of my top advices for everyone that is starting. But I think in general, like it's something that we're trying to keep as we keep growing as a company as well.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
Yeah.
One of the things that I heard you mention a couple of times now is product market fit. Can I ask about have you had to adjust at all your approach or your product for the Chinese market?
No, I think definitely have to adapt. We are still adapting because on one end, we work a lot with data. So like data privacy laws, local servers. In our case, when we're working with AI models as well, there are a lot of rules and regulations you have to adapt and have to follow. The second thing is, of course, language. And not only language, but for example, the whole user experience is very different in terms of where people are used of having some menus and buttons, but even the whole user interface type of thing. Here is much more text-based, much heavier, much more information. We are using more linear, more minimal versions that we work with, especially Latin in general. But I think the other thing we are realizing is not only the technology and product itself, but how you're going to service the customers. For example, support, interactions, the sales process in general, and also now pricing. I think pricing and localizing pricing is a challenge we're still adapting. This is why we basically separated in 2 phases our expansion here. First we're leaning more on helping Chinese companies that are already operating or they want to operate in Latin and Brazil, because there we have a very proven product, we have traction, we have like everything in terms of data privacy and compliance. And while we're doing that, we are using this as a discovery phase to be more in contact with these companies and to help us in our process now to adapt our products to the local markets. But it depends. I think every company is going to be a different type of challenges, depending on the product, depending on what they sell. But I think in general, there are some nuances, as I mentioned, that are not only like not determined by language, but by culture, how they want to experience your product, but especially how they want to be sold to, and how they want to be basically supported, or they want to have like the relationship they want to have with your person. I think the other thing is language, right? Because English is not like not everyone speaks it. So you have to find people locally to be a little bit like your translator or your guide or your person in charge. This is also very, very helpful because it's not only just a language barrier, but also like a cultural, like how you communicate, not just literal translation sometimes. I think these also have been very, very helpful for us.
So hope you enjoy the rest of iTech.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
so much.